the game ends. And you kind of sit there and kind of go, oh, well, I guess I got to play 2. Because, of course, you got to play 2. Mass Effect 2. It's like the best one in the series. People consider it one of the best RPGs.
Is that the best? I thought the third was the best. Was that not the best?
Alex, you've probably experienced this once or twice, but I have faced it in my time as well, is the unwillingness, or let's say the procrastination of not actually finishing a game.
I don't call it the unwillingness to finish a game. I call it putting a game down and then, I'll get back to it.
You never end up picking it back up.
No.
No.
It's like when I set down Skyrim and I go, I want to play something else for a little bit. And I set down Skyrim and then I pick it back up and I go, oh, I have no idea where this character was. I guess I need to start a new character.
Yeah, and then you start from the beginning again.
And then I do it again.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, in Skyrim, have you ever completed the main quest line?
I made myself do that the last time I played.
Ah, good. Okay.
I sat down with the character, I made an orc that used heavy armor and two-headed weapons, and I said, alright, the 2 things I want to accomplish in this character are beating the main quest line for the Civil War and the Dragonborn.
Yeah.
And I did.
That's a noble accomplishment. It only took how many years from when you originally played?
Many.
Yes. The thing that happened to me recently that was really weird, though, is that I've found myself procrastinating on not completing a game that I previously did complete, and that I'm going back to.
I feel like if it's a game you've already beaten once, then it's more okay to, just kind of go,
Yeah, you'd think so. But anyway, let me kind of give you an idea of where I'm at. What I'm talking about is actually a trilogy. It's the Mass Effect Trilogy. Recently, they released the Legendary Edition of the Mass Effect Trilogy, and the idea behind it was to take all 3 games that have now been out for over a decade, and to modernize them so that they, run on modern hardware, but they look better, update the interfaces a little bit, and also integrate all 3 of them in all of their content so that you can play from 1, import the character directly into 2, and 3, which was a little hard before just because it was in a time where they were moving through different console generations at the time. When I originally played the trilogy, I actually didn't play the first one before I played 2 and 3. And then later on, when they ported it to a system I did have, I played 1 retroactively afterward. So this was the first time that I was actually going to be able to create a character and then take all of the decisions specifically that I made in 1 and go through to 2 and 3. And I started with just the idea that I wanted to play the first one at least, and see how much better it was with the new upgrades. And so I did that, and I was like, oh, this looks great. Like, they really did a wonderful job making it look new, and the clarity on all the characters and the way that they made the land looks really good, and the game plays really well now. I forgot some of the, intricacies of how the game plays and the way they did, the upgrade systems and stuff. But for the most part, I really enjoyed that. So what happens is I go through all the content in the first game, and I get through to the end, and I resolve the conflict at the beginning with Saren, and, the game ends. And you kind of sit there and kind of go, oh, well, I guess I gotta play 2. Because, of course, you gotta play 2. Mass Effect 2. It's, the best one in the series. People consider it one of the best RPGs.
Is that the best? I thought the third was the best. Was that not the best?
The third is a close second. I think the only reason why it ends up getting negative points is because of the ending.
Oh, the one where they're like, here's, 3 different endings that are all the same.
Well, that it kind of
they did.
It reduces the whole experience of all of the things that you did to kind of a multiple choice choose your own adventure at the very end, which made people feel like the integration and why we did all of these things was a little muted. and then they had to go back and they had to add to the storyline, which I'll be interested to see now. But basically, you know, in two is a big deal because it's the suicide mission, right? And you get this gigantic crew of 12 different companion characters so that you can go on this mission and hope that everybody makes it through. So I did that. I did all of their loyalty quests. I was able to save everybody at the end, did all the side missions. Great. Well, I'm gonna take a break. I'll come back for 3, but then I don't. I, like, go back. I start 3 immediately because it's like, welp, I gotta do 3 now. I'm in it. I've been doing 3, and I've been, like, doing all the main quests. We've resolved most of the giant intergalactic conflicts. The Reapers are, you know, on a back heel. I've done the, you know, Arrival DLC. I've done the Omega DLC. I've done basically all of, like, the little subquests, and what I'm down to now is the Citadel DLC, which is definitely the kind of thing you want to do at the very end, because it, you know, it's a nice little reunion thing for all of your characters. And then ultimately, like, the last 2 main missions. Everything else is complete. And now that I'm there, I've found myself really reluctant to finish that last little part after having done all 3.
Now, the question I have for you, is this more of a I'm burnt out on Mass Effect?
No. I don't necessarily think it's that.
Then do you think it is I don't want to see the ending because I know that previously this ending was very lackluster and I've enjoyed myself up until this time?
There is the possibility that it is that, because I remember the experience of going through it the last time. And that the ending is a little bit of a come down. I also don't know if it's because this is the first time where I was able to play all 3 of the games back to back to back, and that there is a real possibility, and I think this might be what's happening to me, is that I don't really see myself ever going back to the trilogy again after this. So when I actually finish these last few quests, it's probably the last time I'm going to be experiencing Mass Effect, and this is after doing the whole trilogy in its entirety. So there's an ending. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is you need to write yourself a video essay about the trilogy.
Yes, there needs to be a trilogy about there needs to be a trilogy of video essays about the trilogy.
Because, you know, that's what these YouTubers do, is they write these video essays that are comprehensive about these games they play and why they like them and why they didn't like them. Then they get hundreds and thousands of views because people are like, what's this person say about this game? Anyway, sorry. Going off on a tangent.
Yes.
But if you're never going to play it again, then I assume you're going to do a Titanium Mind again about the Mass Effect trilogy.
Yeah, that will be incoming, but I probably wasn't going to do that until I've actually finished all 3 of them. And I know that I'm finishing it, it's just that now every time I go to, like, pick it up, I'm like, is this going to be the last time I play Mass Effect? Like, literally thinking to myself, oh no, have I reached the end of my Mass Effect journey forever? Which is something I don't experience with a ton of different games, because you can play through them and you can think to yourself, oh, well, I'm going to go back, but am I really going to play the entire Mass Effect trilogy again at this point? I'm not a youngin' anymore.
You're not a youngin' anymore. I mean, not unless it's a decade later and they do something that you're really interested in, probably.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of those things, I want to play this game again, because I haven't played it in a decade. You know, Skyrim.
Right.
Oh, I want to play Skyrim again, because I haven't played it in a long time, and it's a great game.
Right. I think the one thing that's tricky, and maybe it's for games that are specifically like Mass Effect, where there's this through-line narrative that goes through, is I know that picking it back up from the start is, again, going to kind of, like, drag me through doing the entirety of it. Not as much of, like, the pick up and play nature of a Skyrim, where I
Yeah.
might be able to play it for a few hours or something, and then just put it down, because, you know, it's more about the exploration and the tooling around and figuring out what I can do. Mass Effect doesn't really work like that. Mass Effect is about this big, you know, intergalactic conflict with a lot of moving parts where you're integral to moving the story through, and as you're doing so, the characters and their storylines and the intricacies between all of these places keeps moving with you. So the whole narrative is pulled through as you're playing, without a lot of stops or, you know, detours to take.
You just need to go straight into Andromeda.
Well, see, I've thought about that. I have thought about going back to Andromeda, because I have not played that for a while. I feel like that is also going to be a bit of a letdown for me. I liked Andromeda fine, to be honest with you, but it is definitely not the original trilogy. It's a different thing entirely.
If it makes you feel any better, I think I tried Mass Effect 1, maybe Mass Effect 2,
Sure.
and
Meh.
not really my game of tea.
It was not your game of tea.
Yeah, I appreciated what they were trying to do with it and what they did with it, but like for me, especially that first one was just too hard to play.
Yeah.
Like I played it after it came out like years later, and I was just like, this gameplay is not great.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is that there was even conversation when the Legendary Trilogy came out, which is like, do you have to play the first one? Because, yeah, it's still, from a gameplay standpoint, it's still a little rough compared to the later two. Like, there was a lot of heavy lifting in trying to do backstory for the universe when it came to the first game, and setting up all of these different alien races and their interconflicts between each other. And, like, they have to explain the genophage, they have to explain the Geth, and what happened with the Quarians, and why the Krogans don't like the Solarians, and what happened with the Rachni Wars, and what, like, they have to explain a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
By the time you get to 2, you know, it changes.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I don't mind if they have tons of backstory they need to fill you in on, but I think it's better when it happens organically in a game.
Oh, I mean, I like to think that it happened, for the most part organically, just because so much of it is taking place during the actual through quest lines of the main game, where they reveal it. But even so, they created a very big universe with a lot of working parts that they have to establish. And they do it in the game, but it's a lot to establish.
Yeah.
Still. And it can.
They probably
it can
could
be
have
a
just dedicated the game to each part of that, but it's fine. It's fine. That's not what we're talking about today, though.
Right. The point is that now that I'm at the very, very end of 3, even though I was very motivated from the first part, like, oh, I was super excited, like, oh yeah, now I can finally take everything from 1 and I can go into 2, and I've taken everything from 2 and I can go into 3. Now that I'm at the very end, and I know that there's nothing past this, that this is the final, it's not just the last part of game 1 or 2, it's literally the end of the entire trilogy, I find myself really reluctant to do that last little bit. And started doing other things to distract myself from it. And I do have a feeling that it is because there is a certain level of finality to that is palpable. It is not going to be something that I really do past this.
Right.
And experience past this. I don't know if you've experienced that with games that aren't, you know, Skyrim. Or something like that.
I don't think quite in the same kind of way. I don't generally play these games that have, for 1, 2, and 3, that are complete through line. And I haven't played a game like that probably since these games here, which are the .hack games.
Yeah.
And I finished the original .hack, not trilogy, it was a quartet, it was 4 of them, years ago, and I don't have a PlayStation 2 to play them on currently, so I can't. But like, if I were to go and play those again, yeah, I'd want to play through, but they're not on different systems. They were still all made for the same system. You could import your data but it was also more of a JRPG than the Eastern RPG. We've been over that before.
Right.
Where this one doesn't have any big choices you can make. You're
Right.
going through the story. It's not like you're changing the story, you're just going through the story.
Right.
So
Right.
that's not a big deal on that end. You'd still basically get the same through line either way.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think there's a lot of games that I've played in recent decades that have done similar things to that.
Yeah.
Really, truly.
Are there any games that you kept saying that you wanted to go back to, and then you just never did?
There's a lot of games I go, I should play that again.
Yeah.
Sometime.
There's actually another game that I was thinking about that I have procrastinated about going back to for years, and that's Witcher 3, Wild Hunt.
Oh, I thought you were going to say World of Warcraft.
No.
The Wild Hunt is it's okay. I don't mind it. It's not a very good combat game.
The combat is the weakest part of the entire game.
It is. It is.
And everyone will, like, Geralt controls like a tank for reasons that I still do not understand. But the thing is, I played it through to its entirety, and I knew that, like, when the show came back out a few years ago on Netflix, that people were going back to it, and the sales were way up again, which is cool. But
You haven't played it in a number of years, have you?
No, because 2015-16, I think, is when I played it.
So they've recently done a bunch of updates to it.
Ooh.
Like, graphically and everything.
Oh.
Which I had mods for that stuff.
Sure.
But they recently did a huge update for the systems and everything.
Really?
I saw it because I have it on Steam, so it's like, hey, we've got updates for The Witcher, we've got graphics, and you like all this stuff. And it's like, huh, okay. So maybe for you, and they've all been free updates too. Right. So maybe for you, not having played that in a while, maybe it would be worth it for you to see what they've done to it since then.
Oh, yeah. Oh no, it's a Legendary Edition all over again. It's my Mass Effect, but it's now with Witcher.
At least it's only the one game.
Yeah, it is. The thing is that one game is like 100 hours. So,
yeah.
And I think that the problem too, like, I played the expansions and everything, and I have to say that it's also one of those games where when you actually get to the very ending of the game, there is a certain finality to it. Where you feel like everybody kind of comes to a conclusion, and there's something that does feel very final about what happens with Geralt and Ciri and Yennefer and everybody. And then the very fun part at the very end is, if you have the Blood and Wine expansion, is that there's this very nice thing, assuming that Ciri has lived in that scenario, where Geralt can go to his vineyard on the new island and can just sit on the steps with Ciri for as long as you want. You can look out over the landscape, the Mediterranean kind of landscape that they have. It's a nice, very quiet ending to a very violent game world that they create. It's one of those things where there's like these handful of games that I played the first time and I was like, this is great. As a younger person, I was able to do that. And now, thinking about going back to it, I just have this reluctance to, because either I don't really know if I want to experience the ending of it again, or I'm worried that it's not going to be as good as it was. Spec Ops: The Line is one of those. I think about going back to it again, and it's like, oh, what if it's not good? Because now I know all the twists. I know all the twists.
Now the trick is you go back through it and look for all those little things that make more sense.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's like watching The Sixth Sense. Yeah, it's like watching The Sixth Sense.
Case.
Yes. So at any rate, I guess what I would ask for everybody else is if you've experienced this case of procrastinating about not finishing games, and why you think that might be happening for you. If it's just that you don't really like finishing games, or that you're reluctant to finish them because you remember them fondly, or you've heard so much about them and you don't want to have it ruined. That would be something I'd like to hear. Please let us know in the comments down below.